it's very early phases for us. I mean, it's even hard to call it alpha right now because we're deeply in research and trying to figure out how we can achieve this. But one of our goals is to decentralize the off-chain oracle that we built, so that if you are a PBX holder, you can run this client on a piece of on a piece of hardware. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a standalone node. It could just be a daily computer or laptop because it's not going to take a lot of resources. You could potentially run this client. And if whenever you serve data to our on-chain protocol, which is basically NFT valuations or exotic asset valuations, you will earn a small portion of PBX as a reward for keeping the network going.
What is going on, PBX fam? Welcome back to Dapp Central. I'm your host here, Fareed, and as a part of today's video, as you guys heard there from Dennis, I want to talk about some alpha as well as some of the recent progress being built and produced by Paribus. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Paribus, or if it's your first time hearing about them, they're going to be a DeFi protocol that just launched on Arbitrum, focusing on synthetic assets and NFTs. As a part of their continued rollout, we have just seen the initial release of V1 of the Paribus protocol, but we are expecting additional versions to roll out that support NFTs, meta mortgages, as well as Paribus Pro. Now, if you guys want to find out more about Paribus, I do have a full dedicated video surrounding the protocol. As a part of today's video, I want to talk to you guys about the future of Paribus. And so before we get into that, I do want to quickly highlight that Dennis just recently had an interview on the Cardano spot, breaking down some information surrounding the platform. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly recap here exactly what was discussed, and I'll go ahead and actually play the video back here for you guys if you're interested in watching it for yourself. So at the very beginning of the video, he had an introduction surrounding himself, his background, as well as what Paribus is bringing to the ecosystem. Again, keep in mind that Paribus is going to be a multi-chain protocol. They've officially launched right now on Arbitrum, with the expectation of also launching on Cardano as well as other networks. Following that, he briefly touched on the composition of the team and exactly who the team is made up of. He then went into some of the challenges of building on Cardano and talking about how smart contracts are just kind of written differently on ERC compatible platforms versus Haskell on Cardano. He then went into the benefits of the Cardano native tokens and the benefits coming to the Cardano community. Again, given the fact that they are looking to pivot over and come over into Cardano natively. Now, following that, he talked about a pretty big topic here, which I've been asked about quite a while on the channel, and that's going to be their two-way bridge between Ethereum and Cardano. And so if you guys are not aware, the PBX token was initially minted, and I believe there's a total supply, or there will be a total supply of 10 billion tokens ever. And that took place on Ethereum. And so since then, we have seen them create a liquidity pool in collaboration with the Wing Riders DEX. And there's now two platforms that you can actually purchase the PBX token on, right? So either on Ethereum using a centralized or a decentralized exchange like we have with Uniswap or KuCoin, and then on Cardano using a decentralized exchange, which is going to be the Wing Riders DEX. Now, for members wondering, when are we going to get a bridge between both of these ecosystems? Dennis did mention that they are actively working with two partners right now. And the first is going to be AnySwap, and the second is going to be Chainport. Now, if you guys have not heard of any of these bridges, they're going to be well known, especially within the Ethereum space. I know that I first heard of Chainport through their partnership with the Cornucopias game. So Cornucopias actually had their token on BSC, and they were able to port them over into the Cardano network using the Chainport bridge. Now, Dennis did also mention that they are looking for additional bridging partners, and we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that here as a part of the article that I'm going to be breaking down for you guys as a part of today's video. Very lastly, talked about the fact that they're looking for tokenization platforms that will help them bring real world assets into NFTs. Again, leveraging the fact that they're going to be allowing people to take loans or use their NFTs as collateral on their protocol. Now, after he wrapped up the conversation with bridging, he did jump into a little bit of their roadmap, talking about what we can expect for future releases of their roadmap, which again include meta mortgages, synthetic assets, NFTs, Paribus Pro, PBX, and just so much more. So again, check that particular part of the video out. Now, following that, they did have some community questions that were surrounding the future vision for Paribus, why exactly they chose Cardano, as well as their KuCoin geofencing issue. Now, to kind of touch on this a little bit more, if you guys are not familiar, KuCoin recently had a notice that went out to all PBX holders stating that as a part of March 27th, they would no longer be able to trade within the US. However, Dennis did reassure us that this is a temporary geofence. So if you're within the US region and you're not able to trade PBX right now, don't worry, they will be taking care of this very, very soon with an update or an announcement to be made as a part of their official Telegram group. That said, I am going to take a minute to plug in their Telegram. If you guys are not already on there, make sure to go ahead and check that out. We have not only Dennis, but we also have Wilson, who's also pretty active there answering the community's questions. Now, in closing of this particular section of the video, they did talk about their treasury and what we can expect in terms of future protocol funding. Now, the last bit here, and this was arguably one of the biggest pieces that was mentioned as a part of the interview, was some alpha surrounding a decentralized Oracle platform. So if you're not familiar with oracles, this is going to be a feature or a bit of software that will allow for off-chain decisions or real-world decisions to be brought on-chain. So for example, we have things like weather data, stock prices, just any real-world decision that happens in real life. We need a way to bring that onto the network in a verified and secure fashion. So that's the role that oracles play. And right now in the space, we've got Chainlink as well as Charlie 3 specific to Cardano. So Chainlink will be a Oracle service provider within multiple ecosystems, but Charlie and OrcFax are going to be specific to Cardano. Now, given that Paribus is not yet launched natively on Cardano, they can actually leverage Charlie 3 or OrcFax, but when they do make that migration, I would hope to see that they do leverage either one of those two platforms. But back again to the alpha here, what Dennis mentioned was the fact that they're looking for a way to decentralize bringing data on chain. So they'll potentially be working through some research, or they are working through some research right now to see exactly if they are able to do this and bring additional utility to the PBX token. So as a part of running their decentralized Oracle system and providing them data, you'll be able to earn the PBX token as a reward. So this will be very similar to like running a Cardano node stake pool, where you are providing a service to the network, and in return, you're getting paid with the ADA token. Again, this would just be using a Oracle service, but being run in a decentralized fashion by the community. So this is a huge update here for Paribus, and I'm definitely going to be looking to see, hopefully they release more clarity and more articles surrounding this. But right now, Dennis did mention that this is something that they're just researching. So, hold your horses. This has not been confirmed just yet, but it is a little bit of alpha, and it is really good to hear that they are thinking bigger terms, right, in terms of bringing more utility to the token for the community. All right, again, check that video out there. That is going to do it there. Next, I want to just quickly jump into the future of Paribus. And so what I want to break down here is going to be a recent article that was just released on their Medium surrounding what we can expect moving forward. And so as it reads here, now that we've successfully launched the first version of Paribus, our focus has switched to governance as well as integrating NFTs as collateral. As I mentioned to you guys earlier before, we now have V1 currently live on Arbitrum, but we can expect to see more features and more utility coming to the protocol as a part of their future rollouts. Both are now going to be crucial aspects for ensuring the long-term sustainability of the protocol. Again, keep in mind that these are going to offer brand new ways for the platform to earn fees through transactions taking place on the platform. Now, these are going to be very exciting developments that will bring a lot of utility to PBX and benefits to the overall blockchain space. Again, allowing the users of this platform to tap into the liquidity that their NFTs hold, while additionally providing another revenue stream for the PBX protocol. Now, their COO, who's going to be Wilson, states, while we don't have an exact deadline For these developments, we have made impressive progress in reaching internal targets, and we are confident in saying that they will be completed before the end of the year. And so again, the Paribus team has stated in the past that when they state any specific dates, the community really kind of holds them to it. So they are a little bit more hesitant in releasing specific dates well ahead of time. And so if you guys actually look at their 2023 roadmap, you'll notice that there's no dates associated there, but they keep us updated here through these Medium articles, as well as their every Thursday town halls being done on Twitter. Make sure to go ahead and check those out. They are extremely insightful. And again, they do a great job of answering the community's questions if you have any to ask to the team. Now, scrolling down just a little bit further here, they talk a little bit about the NFT cycles as well as the Bitcoin halving. So as we've learned from previous cycles, NFTs will most likely see a resurgence of popularity during this phase. And again, they're talking about the end of the year, and we want to be ideally positioned for when this happens. So I think the time that they're going to be getting NFT support as well as the Bitcoin halving will align very closely. Again, given the fact that we saw so much liquidity pouring into NFTs and synthetic assets during the bull run, they're expecting for this to happen again. Now, as values for both crypto and NFTs increase, so will the desire of people to capitalize on this and unlock the liquidity stored in their assets. I couldn't agree with this more. We're seeing a rise within NFT collateralized loans and the likes of lending pond on Cardano, as well as fluid tokens. Both of these platforms are peer-to-peer. However, keep in mind that Paribus is going to be peer-to-pool. So an additional benefit here to Paribus, but again, they're not currently live on Cardano. Once they do move over into Cardano, I think they will be a force to be reckoned with. Now, another element that the team is working on with their strategic partners is bridging, and that's going to allow for assets to move from one chain to another. So I mentioned that earlier. Dennis mentioned that they're currently working with AnySwap and Chainport on this particular bridging solution. So if you hold PBX on Ethereum and you want to move it over into Cardano and kind of play around with it there once the app is live, you'll be able to do so, and vice versa. Move your tokens from Cardano back over into Ethereum. Now, once a solution like this is fully available and tested, the team intends to have Paribus deployed on other various chains where they'll be seeing their value being delivered to those other communities. Again, reiterating the fact that they will be coming to Cardano as well as a few other networks. Now, in closing, we're going to briefly talk here about their governance model in vPBX. So Dennis, their co-founder, states our governance model will leverage vTokenomics, as we believe this structure will incentivize the long-term holders for PBX. Again, really bringing a lot of utility when it comes to having a say in the direction of the development of the protocol. Now, a key feature of vTokenomics is the requirement for native tokens such as PBX to be locked up for a set amount of time, allowing users to receive V tokens that are going to be non-transferable and they cannot be sold. So the vPBX tokens will be, or the V tokens, I should say, will be a reward given out when you're locking your PBX token, and that'll give you way access when it comes to voting. Now, in the same model of vTokenomics, the holders only get the ability to submit proposals or vote for them. Now, this is not going to be new. We've seen something like this already implemented with the Indigo token, as well as the AADA finance platform being built on Cardano. Now, it states here, whereas in other models, holders also receive a percentage of protocol fees according to the quantity of tokens that they have locked up. And so this is not going to give you access to revenue sharing, but it will give you access to voting for the direction of the platform. Although it's impossible to fully isolate a protocol from the effect of whales, this approach combined with quadratic voting systems appears to offer the most effective way to limit their effect. If you don't understand this last bit here, what this is basically saying is that they don't want one or two wallets holding the majority of PBX to control the entire direction of the protocol. And so as you own more tokens, your value of the voting power will actually decrease once you hit a certain threshold. Again, this is being done in order to make sure that everybody has a fair share, or a fair vote, I should say, moving forward, and not just a few wallets controlling or dictating the entire direction of the platform. I personally agree with quadratic voting. If you guys have not heard of it before, I definitely recommend that you go ahead and check it out. That is going to bring us to a close for today's update here surrounding Paribus, in which we talked about Dennis's recent appearance on the first live stream being hosted by the Cardano spot. Following that, we broke down the future article here around Paribus and exactly what we can expect to be rolling out here from this team. That includes integration of synthetic assets as well as NFTs, as well as a bridging platform and the vPBX token, or the vPBX governance platform. If you guys found this update here to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you guys could tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content just like this, consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions for me surrounding Cardano or Paribus, then make sure to leave those down below. That said, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video.
Today we have a guest, Dennis from Paribus, who is the co-founder. Dennis, would you be able to introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I'm Dennis. I'm from London. I've been a software engineer for the last 10, 11 years now. Of those last 5 years has been within the Web3 space. Before that, of course, Web2, started from corporates, different startups, and then eventually ended up in Web3.
Nice, nice. And so what is Paribus? Could you introduce it to our audience today? Introduce it to the Cardano community?
Sure. So Paribus is a borrowing and lending platform. It's your typical DeFi platform, but with a twist and our USB, which we'll get into a bit later, I guess. We are cross-chain borrowing and lending platform. We take collaterals in the form of conventional crypto assets, that being ADA, Bitcoin, ETH, etc. But on top of that, we are now working on a second set of features, which is where our USB comes on. NFTs, metaverse lands, synthetic assets, and LP tokens as a collateral form, so you could borrow against those assets as well and unlock the liquidity that's locked within these exotic assets, as we call them.
Nice. So just to give a bigger picture to our audience, what sets you apart from your competitors, if you have identified any or anyone out there?
Yeah, so there are a few competitors out there. One of the biggest competitors, I would say, is BendDAO. Everyone's probably heard of them. They are one of the leading NFT borrowing and lending platforms on the EVM side of things. So we looked at some of the so BendDAO actually released their product while we were still in ideation phase, and we looked at what they built. We looked at other competitors that are in this space that are smaller in size, and we noticed there are some deficiencies with how things are handled, especially on the liquidation side of things, and sort of getting the community involved with liquidation mechanisms. So and on top of that, of course, the NFT valuations, which is the big USP that we have. Most of these platforms that take NFTs or exotic crypto assets as a collateral form, they work on the fact that it's a P2P system, meaning if you have an NFT and you want to borrow against it, you put that up for a collateral, and I would come along and give it a value which is subjective to what I see it as. And if you accept that valuation, then you can borrow against it. This makes the system a little bit of a bottleneck because, of course, you need to match two people. And then on top of that, you need to make sure that the valuation that comes through from the lender side is actually fair, which can be quite hard. So what we set out to do is we asked the question, how can we automate this? How can we make it a bit more scalable in sense? So we came out with the idea that we can value these NFTs off-chain using AI models and put that valuation on-chain and allow people to immediately borrow from the liquidity pools that are within the Paribus protocol. So that's our main USP. We use AI models off-chain. We have partners. We have partnered with 6 different AI valuation providers, and we take all of their valuations and we run it through an algorithm. And we say, okay, this is what we believe the fair value is based on data, nothing subjective. So everything's sort of objective based on on-chain data, such as social media presence of the NFT collection, follow account, trading volumes, TWAP, etc., etc. And we take all of this data, we make sense of it, and we give back a valuation. And if the NFT owner feels that it's a fair valuation, then they can accept it and immediately have access to a borrowing limit within the Paribus protocol. So that way, we take away the whole P2P matching system, and we allow the system to scale up as long as there is liquidity to be lent out on the underlying protocols itself, on the underlying liquidity pools itself.
Thank you for that. And what kind of challenges did you face while building Paribus, and how did the team overcome these challenges?
So the biggest challenge we had faced, we started Paribus specifically for the Cardano ecosystem, because we felt that Cardano ecosystem was growing. It's quite decentralized, and it has community members that are very sort of enthusiastic about what Cardano is doing, which of course is positive, and to some cases it can be a negative as well. But we saw it as a positive, and we thought, well, how can we bring more liquidity and more traction to the Cardano ecosystem? So we thought of this product, but the challenge came when we realized that we have to build this product in Plutus. Plutus is a very niche language, of course. It's not easy to find Haskell developers, let alone the layer of Plutus on top of it. And when you do find them, they are quite expensive. So we took the drastic decision to actually change our code base and write the entire idea in Solidity, with the fact that we had seed investment from C Fund, which is IOG's VC arm, to give us seed investment and give us a direct communication line with IOG itself. And we had got information that there will be KEVM at the time, which is basically an EVM sidechain for Cardano. But then again, a few months down the line, Cardano said they won't be sort of following the KEVM model, but they would rather have a AlphaNet, which is a completely EVM solution, another sidechain. And since hearing those news, we thought, okay, let's just focus on the functionality and build everything in Solidity, and we will live on the sidechain that's officially released by IOG. And that way we can build bridges between the two realms. So we can bring liquidity from the EVM world, we can bring NFTs from the Cardano world, and vice versa, and sort of build this bridge of liquidity back and forth between the chains, because we believe that cross-chain and interoperability, interoperability is a must. And with that in mind, we sort of overcome the challenge of finding Plutus developers early on, which was the biggest challenge. Then I would say, technically speaking, the biggest challenge was, how do you bring off-chain data on-chain in a manner where it doesn't cost too much to us as well? Because of course you can't continuously write on-chain these valuations. It sort of quickly gets out of hand. Especially when you start integrating with layer ones like Ethereum itself, which is where a lot of the NFT liquidity is. So we had to come up with a mechanism, some sort of an Oracle pattern, and some sort of a Oracle pattern to write this data on chain in a streamlined way, where it doesn't deplete our treasury, where we continue to pay for transaction fees, but it, at the same time, keeps it secure, so that if the prices fluctuate, the loans can be subject to liquidation or not quickly, without the system going to sort of negative cash flow. So these are some of the challenges that we had initially. Of course, the challenges in technical world and development never ends. I mean, we are continuously hit with different obstacles and hurdles that we have to get over. So I'm sure we will have way more things coming our way. So one of the things that we realized during the bear market is the liquidation mechanisms that we had initially had implemented. Again, going back to our direct competitor, BendDAO, there was a moment, I think in October or November last year, when the bear market was quite deep, where a lot of loans on there were subject to liquidation. I think like 50 or even more base NFTs were subject to liquidation, and it became a bottleneck for the protocol itself. So we looked at that challenge and we said, okay, what can we do more to ensure that there is a sufficient liquidation mechanism, so that we don't end up in the same kind of flow where BendDAO ended up. Of course, BendDAO didn't actually go negative cash flow, because the market luckily sort of picked up and everything worked out well for them. So that was another challenge, and we had to come up with a second liquidation model to make sure our platform is always in positive cash flow. But yeah, as I said, these are some of the current challenges that we had, and I can already foresee some of the future challenges that's going to come along very quickly once we start accepting more types of collateral.
Thank you for that, Dennis. With everything you mentioned, so how can a user benefit from using using Paribus? And what's in it for the Cardano community? Like,
Sure.
how
So
do you plan to go on Cardano natives moving forward?
yeah, so that's one of the biggest questions that we get because on our platform it says built for Cardano, but we are an EVM solution. This is correct. I mean, when you look at the face value, this is correct. And it's a rightful question to ask. But our intention has always been to move toward to move towards a more cross-chain environment where we want to build between different chains. So today we're focusing on EVM and Cardano. Tomorrow we might be focusing on Algorand as the third option, because we do believe that we have to become a fully cross-chain protocol to thrive in this industry. You can't sort of have garden walled fences and lock liquidity in different realms and not allow it to flow through. So we want the way I see it benefits Cardano is when we live between the two realms, we basically become a bridge of liquidity and utility between EVM and Cardano. So if you have CNFTs, you could move them over to our platform in the middle and start borrowing against it. And maybe some of the liquidity from EVM side will be on our platform, so you could borrow against it, and vice versa. So the more liquidity flows back and forth, it's better for everyone. And it sort of scales up the whole Web3 industry, which is what everybody wants. We all want decentralization one way or another. And I think this is how we will benefit the Cardano ecosystem initially. Of course, when the platform becomes sort of self-sustainable and generates enough fees, then we want to go beyond what we are today. And we want to actually start looking to maybe a Plutus version of the platform, where when we can actually afford these developers that we're talking about. Because as I said, Haskell developers are not cheap to hire. So we do have plans to still write the platform in Plutus, but it totally depends on how quickly can the platform become sustainable. And then once we do, we will have plans to have deep integration with Cardano because, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, CNFTs are seed investor, IOG really supports us. We have been on their channels and we always get their support, and we want to give back to this community because they have given us what we have needed up until this point.
Sounds really great. And just to reset the room a bit, Dennis, and get some folks from our audience to ask questions.
Sure.
Uh, let's just let them drop some questions on this. There's a form attached to the stream on your upper right. Just click on that, submit a question, or our moderators will be checking the comments on the live stream right now. So far for now, we have a question from Ryan Paxton. He mentioned, when is the Paribus token moving over from ERC20 to Cardano? Do you have a timeline for this?
So we already minted our C native tokens, Cardano native tokens. It's on Wing Riders, but the current problem that we're having is a two-way bridge to move these tokens back and forth between EVM and Cardano. So we actually had a meeting this morning for a bridge provider who's willing to basically work with us to open up this two-way bridge. So we will rely on third-party bridge providers to allow us to make that transition. We, for example, spoke to AnySwap and Chainport as the two providers that are currently working on Cardano native bridges, two-way bridges. And as soon as they are ready, we're ready. So it's effectively sort of waiting on those third-party developments.
Got it. And just to feed our audience some more information about Paribus, what does your roadmap look like? Could you share a timeline? I heard that
Yeah,
that your mainnet is currently live. Am I correct?
that's correct. Our mainnet version 1 went live yesterday. So we are running on Arbitrum, which is another chain that we are interested in because of the liquidity and DeFi usage. So our mainnet is there, and it's running. So you can go to app.paribus.io and you can start borrowing and lending against your conventional assets at the moment. This is version 1. This is the foundation layer of our platform, which basically allows you to borrow against a dynamic interest rate based on utilization, etc. So you could do that immediately right now and drop some liquidity if you want an interest. As more lenders come through, more borrowers come through, it becomes sort of a self-fulfilling platform. In terms of our roadmap, we do have a very exciting roadmap for the next 9 months. So one of our first things that we want to hit the nail on is the NFT side of things, which is our USP and AI-based valuations. We are looking to go live with that Q3 sometime. So we are just wrapping up our coding phase. We're going to go into testing phase and then audit phase, and then after that, we're hoping to go live. So the NFT side will be coming on soon. Then after that, not probably after, but simultaneously, we are introducing the governance program through PBX and PBX. So that will follow very closely along the time with NFTs, which is Q3. And then once we have those things wrapped up, we basically have the main features of the platform ready and on mainnet and so ready for usage. We now go into the next phase of the project, which is Paribus Pro. Paribus Pro is is basically Paribus, but with KYC and AML attached to it. So it's more catered towards institutions. So any institution that is interested to lend or borrow from liquidity pools that are KYC, we will be able to provide that opportunity. Then some of the other roadmap items, which comes Q3, Q4, we have a concept called Meta Mortgages along with our Metaverse HQ. So we bought some plots and lands in Pavia Metaverse, for example. We designed our HQ. The idea is that we want to place our HQ in these metaverses, different metaverses and realms, where if you are a metaverse player, you can go into these HQs, click a few buttons in this virtual environment and actually take out a loan as if you're on the Paribus protocol. So it gives you this different virtual environment and feeling. Because we think metaverse is going to grow, and the gaming sector is always growing anyway, and we want to sort of corner that market as well as much as possible and be ready for the future. So metaverse HQs and meta mortgages will be in play. Meta mortgages are essentially if you want to buy, let's say, a piece of land on Pavia or on the central land, and you do not have the full cash up front, you could put up a collateral as, let's say, 20-30% deposit, just like a regular mortgage in the real world, and pay off the rest based on a certain fixed period and fixed interest rate. So that's meta mortgages as well that we're trying to wrap up and get out before the end of the year. So that's our roadmap for the next 9 months. And then once we release this part of the product, then our next step is actually to transition to DAO, because we want Paribus to become a decentralized organization. So we, as the co-founders, want to sort of phase out of this project and leave it into the hands of the PBX holders through PBX governance as well. So our end goal is to phase out and become a DAO and hand over to the users for them to make most use of it. So I think that covers our roadmap. Of course, we have a detailed roadmap on our website, and you can come and join Telegram or Twitter or Discord. We will have a lot more. Detail on the upcoming items.
That sounds really great, Dennis. So right now we have a guest in our waiting room, Lucas Machiavelli. I will be adding him on. He has a few questions for
Sure.
you. Welcome, Lucas.
Hey
Just
everybody.
introduce yourself and ask Dennis all the questions you have in mind.
Hey Dennis, nice to meet you. Actually,
Likewise.
when Miguel told me to come and speak, I already knew Paribus. Actually, I invested in Paribus, I think like over a year ago, and it actually went quite good. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the project. I haven't seen much of it recently because life. And yeah, I had some questions. Actually,
Sure.
I would like knowing as much as you can tell about the team, how the team is composed.
Yeah, sure. So we have 6 developers at the moment. We're decentralized, so we don't have a physical office, as is the norm for the DeFi world and Web3 world. So most of our developers are based in Poland. We, as the co-founders, we're sort of scattered around. So I'm in London. Our CTO is in Dubai, and our CMO is currently in Miami, but he sort of moves around. That's the team. And then we have one UI UX designer who's also in Poland as well at the moment.
That's awesome. And yeah, I also wanted to ask. You just mentioned a little bit on the roadmap for the next 9 months, and I know you are doing a DAO, but at least from your point of view, what are your views on what Paribus will be, for example, 5 years from now?
So we want to be the standard when people think about NFTFi. So that's basically a mixture of DeFi and NFTs. NFTFi is the new term, I guess, that is being sort of coined around. So we want to be the go-to platform when people think about exotic assets and borrowing and lending. That's our long-term vision. And we want to sort of corner these markets well before they become a trend, such as meta mortgages and metaverse HQs. This is why we sort of look for beyond what today's trends are and what we can see coming in the near future. We are, for example, because of the technology that we are building, we can easily move it from one asset to another. So due to the way we built this off-chain Oracle pattern, we are looking into real-world assets, which we believe is a new trend that's coming up. So you could collateralize and turn your real-world assets into NFTs and then use that NFT on Paribus to borrow against it, for example. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. So our main goal is to become the go-to name when you think about exotic assets and DeFi together.
Yeah, with Token Allies, which is one of my projects, we really like Cardano because of the real fee or real fi aspect of Cardano. Is the idea of, for people that don't know, is basically the idea of, okay, we are creating this technology, but if we are creating it just for ourselves, I don't think it makes much sense. But if we focus on actually changing real world and going into the real world and change people's lives, it's such a bigger movement and concept. So I really like Cardano because of this. And I wanted to ask you, why did you choose Cardano?
So Cardano, when we were looking for a chain, we had a few requirements. One, that it is truly decentralized. Two, that it does touch a lot of people, not a few people, not the minority, but the majority. And three, we wanted to have a chain where it thinks about interoperability and cross-chain from roots. So based on those three requirements, I mean, we compared several chains. Initially, Polkadot, due to its cross-chain interoperability, was an option, but we quickly realized it may not work out for us there. So we started looking to Cardano, and that's basically how it became a thing where we thought it ticks all the boxes that we want, and it's sort of it has a roadmap that is in line with our vision. And that's basically how we came to choose Cardano.
Awesome, man. And I have one small little question. Will PBX be the DAO token, or it will be a utility token and then you're doing another one for the DAO?
So PBX will be the only token that we will ever mint. You will have PBX and you will lock them into our VE program and you'll get VE PBX, which is basically a accountant kind of vote escrow token that has no monetary value. It basically gives you voting power, but the only way to acquire VPBX is by locking it for a fixed amount of length. So PBX will be the main token, and it will be the main token to sort of push the proposals left and right as we become a DAO.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. You're doing amazing.
Take care.
Alrighty. Thank you, Lucas.
Bye. See you.
All right, Dennis, that was a great exchange of thoughts. We have one more question from the
So,
audience. Um, he wanted, Kanyak said, first of all, congrats, Dennis and Team Paribus. Their first question is the geofence issue with KuCoin for US-based users resolved? If not, what is the timeline to resolve this?
okay, let me get that one first. So the geofence issue was a small hiccup based on some legal complications that we had, but it is essentially resolved. We're just waiting for KuCoin to confirm. We do expect geofence to be removed.
And then the second question would be, what do I do with my Paribus tokens today to share in the fees generated by the platform?
So today, today, right now, there isn't, you can't use it as a collateral because, of course, we've seen that many DeFi platforms, their downfall has been to use their own token as a collateral form, unfortunately. So this is the reason, this is a security risk for us why we do not allow PBX to be used as a collateral. But of course, with time and with a lot of sort of deep liquidity within the PBX token itself, things will change and we will start to think about offering PBX as a collateral form, as long as sort of the distribution of the token is not in the hands of few, but in the hands of majority. What you could do with PBX token is essentially going to be unlocked in a few weeks with the VE program. So you'll be able to lock up your PBX to get VE back and start sort of raising proposals, voting on them, and directing our development pathway, and even to a level where you could direct some of the sprints we have to say we should include this, we should work on this, we should prioritize this. So a few weeks time, PBX will become useful to direct the platform.
Um, Question from Joan Nipo. Does Paribus team have enough liquidity to fulfill the whole roadmap? And if not, how will the team get that liquidity by selling PBX tokens or something else?
So at the moment, we have the treasury we need to build till the end of the year, at the very least. This is basically our this is basically our projections at current market state, assuming the market doesn't turn bull, and if it turns bear, we still have safe haven assets. Hopefully, stablecoins stay stable, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole. But assuming the market stays like this, or if it gets better, of course, it's better for us. Then we have more liquidity, more funds to deploy and grow the engineering team. But for the time being, we're safe. As for selling PBX, we do not want to sell PBX. We do not want to sell PBX because the prices, we believe, do not reflect the token's value at this stage. And thus, it just doesn't make sense for us to sort of sell these tokens, and not to mention, of course, the additional sell pressure. So it's not in our best interest to sell these tokens. If we do need emergency funding, we do have discussions and ongoing discussions for investments that may come in. But at the moment, as long as we have the liquidity that we need, we're not really thinking of taking on any more investments, nor selling any more tokens, because we just don't need it at the moment.
Thank you for that. So while we wait for others to add more questions or join us on stage, um, is there any bits of alpha that you can share with us that maybe our audience is like curious to learn or they'd like to hear, and what do they need to know? What channels do they need to follow and all of that?
Yeah, so there are a few research items that we're working on. It's very early phases for us. It's even hard to call it alpha right now because we're deeply in research and trying to figure out how we can achieve this. But one of our goals is to decentralize the off-chain oracle that we built so that if you are a PBX holder, you can run this client on a piece of on a piece of hardware. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a standalone node. It could just be a daily computer or laptop because it's not going to take a lot of resources. And you could potentially run this client. And if whenever you serve data to our on-chain protocol, which is basically NFT valuations or exotic asset valuations, you will earn a small portion of PBX as a reward for keeping the network going. So we are researching into this. We want to really push the boundaries on how we can achieve this. There are ways, but it's difficult. And apart from it being difficult, the whole question around security and sort of making sure price feeds are secure is the challenge. Of course, we could work with existing Oracle providers like Chainlink, but then it sort of defeats the whole purpose because we want to give more utility to the PBX token itself and make it so more self-sustaining economy. So that's the one piece of alpha that I can share. Details as research goes on and as we become more clear will be released if things go as expected. But yeah, that's the one piece of news that I could probably share in the meantime.
Thank you for that. That sounds great. And be sure, guys, to follow Paribus.io on Twitter and enter their Discord, Telegram, all their channels so that you don't miss out on any news. We have another question from the community. It's when airdrop for the Cardano community?
To be honest, we don't usually do airdrops. We haven't done an airdrop at all till date. So we will not probably do any airdrops because we believe the token, the airdrop receivers sometimes see this as a free money and they just basically destroy the token. So we are not a fan of airdrops. Instead, we do want to bring in programs where we would ask for certain tasks or certain sort of efforts from the community, and in return, you could possibly get some PBX tokens. However, we do have plans to run some marketing strategies that involves some tokens to be sort of handed over to certain individuals, certain wallets, both on Cardano and the EVM side, but it will not be a direct airdrop. It will be in a form of where, for example, you would be eligible for a claim, but that claim of tokens will be automatically redirected and rerouted to the VE contract. So you claim it, you basically automatically stake it, and now you're part of the governance of Paribus, and it's in your best interest to keep going and sort of be part of the community and give back to the community because you're obviously staked and you want the platform to do well. But yeah, we do not plan to do like ordinary airdrops at the moment.
Thank you for that. So yes, let's just wait a couple more seconds for any other questions. And pretty much, let's see, any future community collaborations that Paribus is willing to explore? Um, like if you'd like to connect with other community managers, team leaders, and projects within the community, do you see any potential collaborations there?
Yes, so we're currently interested in any bridge providers that could give us two-way bridges between Cardano, Milkamedo, and EVM, or Cardano and AlphaNet from IOG, vice versa. We are interested in tokenization models because we're looking into real-world assets. So any companies or any products out there that are looking to onboard individuals in the real world and turn their assets into NFTs, that would be an area of interest. Aside from that, I mean, we are in direct communication with IOG, so they help us out quite a bit. They connect us within the Cardano ecosystem to different projects. So it would be business as usual for us on that end. But if anyone listening is part of any of those projects that I just mentioned, then yeah, do reach out to us on Telegram or Discord, tag me. Would be more than happy to start discussions.
Nice. That sounds really juicy. So There's another question from our audience from wBTC. Are there plans to open up to other exchanges?
There is always plans for exchanges. Our plans for exchanges never stop. We do work behind the scene for exchanges, but as everybody knows, exchange details cannot be sort of made public until the day of listing for obvious reasons. So just stay tuned, stay on Telegram, stay on Discord, and you will hear of developments as things progress.
And as we wait for more questions, is there anything top of mind, Dennis, that you would like to share with the audience today? Something that's not part of our list of plans? Just anything that you feel the audience needs to know.
Well, not really anything Bill, the audience needs to know, but maybe if I can just sort of plug the platform in there and say, check out the Mainnet V1. Do give us feedback. We do appreciate feedback. We are trying to make the UI UX even more abstract and simple. So we are working on different concepts around sort of account abstraction and trying to get rid of the whole concept of wallets so that it's a bit more seamless and Web2-like experience. But any feedback on the app would be really appreciated. Of course, feel free to drop in your liquidity if you wish to earn from your liquidity in return. Yeah, I mean, and do join our community. We are always on Telegram, so any questions, anything that you want to ask, anything you want to clarify, one of us is always around to answer questions. So yeah, that's all from my side, I would say.
All right, thank you so much. And we are approaching the 40-minute mark. So just to respect your time, I will get a message out there on how they can connect with you on your social media, your Discord, your your mainnet test site, and pretty much thank you, Dennis, for taking this time to join me on the spot live. This is our first one, so you are
Oh, nice. I'm the first one.
yes for the live streams, and of course there's going to be a lot more potential streams that we can do together down the road.
Yeah.
I'll just stay in touch. And pretty much any last words before we wrap up and call it a day?
Yeah, not much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad I'm one of the first to be on the podcast. I'm sure we'll come back on again in a few months' time with V2. But it's been great being here, answering all the questions, speaking to you. So thank you.